Hello and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. You may notice that we are wearing the exact same thing as the last pod. That is because it has been approximately 6 minutes of me pacing the room and John pacing his own room, and then we're recording back to back. So we don't have a lot to say about the Seahawks-Vikings game because it hasn't happened yet at the time of recording, but this pod we are going to break down what we think will happen in this Seahawks-Bears game on Thursday night. Is that Thursday or is that the Friday game, actually, now that I think about it?
Who's to say?
December 26th is the Thursday game. Gosh, I just had to do some quick math. So we'll talk that. We will talk, obviously, some value dogs. And then we're going to talk college football bowl games because that is coming up. And those are some exciting games with the Washington State teams going up against some bigger opponents than we were really expecting, I think, in these bowl games. So it'll be fun to talk that. And then, obviously, a little college basketball while that's going on. We didn't get to talk Gonzaga's loss to UConn, which I didn't get to rub in John's face. So
let me out.
We're going to talk through that, and then a little Kraken before we sign off for Christmas and give you guys a little respite from our voices. Anything to say before we get started, John?
No, let's do it.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John, like I said, there is no game that has happened at the time of recording, so we can't talk Seahawks-Vikings, but if you were to react, what would be the first word coming out of your mouth?
Domination. I can't believe. I hope Sam Darnold's okay. That injury looked pretty bad on the field. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But then for Sam Howell to throw for 700 yards and 12 touchdowns. I knew he had it in him, so I was proud to see him.
Law of averages had to get some yards somewhere.
Yeah, he averages 350 yards a game, so he had 20 last game. 700 actually makes sense when you think about it. Yeah, but so we have no idea what's going on in that Minnesota game. We aren't going to talk about playoff picture or anything like that because obviously so much of that will be determined by what happens against Minnesota. But just talking about this matchup against the Chicago Bears, I guess I want to start just because I want to talk a little Bears. Obviously, fair to assume that all our fans are fairly schooled in the Hawks, but this Bears team is just kind of wacky. They've obviously had a lot of ups and downs. It's been a lot of downs recently. Their offense is just really, really bad. They are 31st in the NFL in passing yards per game, which as a Caleb Williams fantasy owner does not surprise me in the least. They're also 21st on the ground in terms of rushing game, 25th in points for. They just really, really struggled to move the ball, struggled to convert in the red zone. A lot of that's based on offensive line play, but fact of the matter is we will not have to worry about them dropping 30 against this Hawks team. Their strength is their defense. They are still, which honestly, considering they're 25th in points for, they're 11th in points against, which is even more impressive because obviously when your offense is that bad, your defense is on the field more time you get tired, more drives against you by other offenses. So they're 11th in points against at 22 points a game. I think that's an impressive stat, and I think that's where the conversation needs to start about this matchup with the Seahawks.
Yeah, you look at just their counting numbers right now, and Caleb Williams, counting-wise, has almost 3,000 yards. And again, this is before this next week, so he'll probably surpass 3,000 yards by the time this podcast comes out. Currently 17 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Really good ratios, honestly. DeAndre Swift, 212 carries for 800 yards. Nothing to scoff at. But really what shines is this team's defense and special teams' ability to get them good field position, and that's when they're really able to play well. So the Bears, a little scary on that front, especially when the Seahawks have been so prone to giving the ball up short yardage situations for other teams. If Geno is playing against this Bears team, like the turnovers in the red zone have been a huge concern for Geno, and we didn't really talk about that in the last pod, but that is something that he's going to be under duress a lot during this game, and he's going to have to make smart decisions. And so this Bears team defensively really does scare me. Another just thing that I want to know, Rome Odunze has been pretty good coming on. Same with Moore. Sorry, just blanked on the name.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore. For the Bears, he's been coming on as well. Like the receiving core has done a lot better these last few weeks, and has really turned it on. But really, it's going to come down to this offense holding onto the football, making smart plays, and making prolonged drives. Just doing exactly what we just said. Keeping the Bears defense on the field for long stretches of time, make them tired, make them work, because the Bears are 4-10. Even though they have a nice defense, they're still losing these games. Like, just don't allow them to catch up to you, and you'll still be okay.
They've also lost 8 straight and given up 30 points in 3 of their last 4. So it's fair to say that this team is spiraling to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Not the worst time to be getting this matchup. They should also realistically be thinking about draft picks by this point in the season. What is to be gained by sending Caleb out there to play their hardest? We don't know the result of this game, but they will have played the Lions last week. We can go ahead and assume that went poorly. And they played the Packers to end the season. So just for what it's worth, an absolutely brutal end of the season. This team played Packers, Vikings, Lions, Niners, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers. That is just...
It's almost like they're in the hardest division in football,
Far and away. But that is by far the hardest schedule of any team not named the Packers, Vikings, or Lions. Really gross. Things to watch. Geno's ability to move the ball against this defense is going to be big. Hopefully, he's back and healthy by then. I don't think we have any indication that he would miss 1 week, let alone 2.
Yeah.
And then our defense's ability to do what so many teams up to this point have done, which is really stymie and frustrate this Bears offense. They should have every opportunity to have one of their best defensive games of the season. I implore that they step up and do it, because obviously, regardless of the results of the Vikings game, this is a huge game for the Seahawks.
They need to win this game. Yeah.
And against this offense, all the tape on all the ways to frustrate this team, they should have no excuses. This should be a defensive masterpiece by Mike Macdonald, or I will be very frustrated.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another note, you're talking about the Bears tanking and not necessarily, competing in these last couple games. There's a world where Caleb Williams doesn't even play in these last 2 weeks. Like, they don't want him to get injured. He's been getting beat up the entire season. I think he had a hamstring injury at one point. It's like, they don't want to put their star number 1 pick under duress for the last 3 weeks of the season against the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Packers for no reason. There's a world where they just don't play him. So we'll see what happens this weekend against Detroit, see if they end up taking him out at halftime or something like that. This Bears offense is just not potent enough right now, and I really think the Seahawks should have, like you said, a masterclass for Mike Macdonald defensively. And I think they should have the ability to stop this Bears team. I don't really see anything that would concern me unless, for whatever reason, DeAndre Swift decides to have, 200 yards of rushing. Like, unless that happens, which I don't think the Seahawks team is capable of allowing that.
Nor is DeAndre Swift very capable of achieving that.
No. But that's the only way this Bears team can keep up with the Seahawks. Again, I think the Seahawks are going to score 20 points. The Bears have still, like you said, they've been spiraling. They've given up 30 in 3 of their last 4. The Seahawks should score 20. The Bears should score 13, and it shouldn't be an issue for the Seahawks. But as always, we're still a little concerned because the Seahawks are so hit or miss, is what I'll say.
Yeah, in this 8-game losing streak, the Bears have scored more than 20 points once. A 27-point outing and a loss against the Vikings. So, obviously, 20 is the line to get to beat this team, and I trust the Hawks to do that. I think DeAndre Swift going for 200 is an interesting route. I think the more realistic way that they could blow this is if the Bears defense scores a touchdown.
That's fair,
If Geno throws a pick 6 or if somebody coughs up the ball for a return 6, this Bears defense is very good, and they are capable of generating turnovers. I think that's the more realistic route for how did this happen. Some really crucial defensive plays by the Bears. So I want the Hawks offense to be effective, but I also want them to play very, very smart. Understand that you're basically playing against 14 points all game, and plan accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. Geno needs to be safe with the ball. He's, I've said it already, but it's like in the red zone, he's a little bit more risky, and to his credit, that's okay, especially against this team. This team has trouble sustaining long drives, but you cannot turn it over in their territory or anything like that. or I guess in Seahawks territory. You can't give them good field position because they're a Bears team that will be able to score. They'll be able to kick field goals if you give them the opportunity to. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, should be easy. I think that's all there is to say.
Yes.